Hello, it's Kirsty and I'm here to do video number 2. And this video is on an old double homicide. On the left is Debra May Helmeck, who was 9 at the time of her murder. And then on the right is Shari Faye Smith, who was 17 when they were both killed by the same man, and his name was Larry Gene Bell. He was caught reasonably quickly. So I've actually got a few charts that are very well timed and that we're going to have a look through to see the patterns that arise and the different things that we can see from the planets in the natal chart in terms of Larry Gene Bell, and also the transiting planets at the time when he decided that he wanted to kill these 2 innocent girls. Okay, now here's the chart for, it's the 31st of May 1985 at 3:38 p.m. And it was at this time that Shari Faye Smith, the eldest girl, had been out for the day. She was about to graduate a couple of days later. So she'd been out with her boyfriend and she came home, pulled up her car out the front to check her mailbox, and vanished within a split second. And she was abducted by Larry Gene Bell. So this is the chart for that moment that she was abducted from her driveway near her mailbox. So what this shows us is here on the ascendant is Shari Faye. Now we'll note that Libra is a double sign as well, so double signs indicate 2 people. All right, which we know there's 2 victims in this, but there's actually separate charts. So Shari Faye was 17 and abducted at this moment in time. So she's represented by Venus. And Venus is in the house, which is 7th house, which is open enemies. So he was just right there and honing in on her, basically, which he was. He was a predator, and he honed in on her. The ruler of the 7th house is the perpetrator. I apologise for the dogs in the background. Okay, so the 7th house, being the perpetrator, has Aries on the cusp, which shows us the ruler of that, which is Mars, and that sits in the 9th house. So the very first indication of this person that did this is, to me, that it's someone with a religious background, or religion is something to do with it. And we now know that it actually was a lot to do with it. But so here is your perpetrator, and then in the 9th house of religion. So there he sits right there. Okay. Mars is actually in Gemini in the 9th, so it's in a detrimental position. Gemini is not as happy with the 9th house there as it would be if it was down here in the 3rd house. So it's flipped around. It's like his logic and his abstract mind were completely tipped on their head at that point, and the religious idealizations, I'll get it right, became too strong for him. And we'll also note that it's in a grand trine here with Pluto, which is just out of sign, actually. That's in Scorpio, and with Jupiter. So, you know, he had delusions of, in a grand way, that's for sure. So the ruler being of the perpetrator being in Gemini shows us a lot as well. There's another double sign. There's two people again. The perpetrator is looking to hurt two people, when in fact he's hurt a lot more people doing what he did, but it was his aim to hurt two people. But not only that, he took her at her mailbox, and that is Mercury or Gemini's territory, communication, mail, and things like that. So that shows that he took her straight from her mailbox, from her car, which is another Gemini or Mercurian trait. In fact, you can relate it right back down to Gemini or Mercury, being that she was taken at the mailbox near her car after being followed in her car in her neighbourhood to her house. So it's very pertinent actually that all this is in Gemini, and that the Sun is in Gemini, because we now know as well that after the abduction, Larry Jean Bell rang up Shari Faye's house and taunted her mum and her sister and family for weeks, and actually used the phone an awful lot. So it's no wonder Gemini is pretty prominent in this chart here. Okay, so the co-ruler of the ascendant, or the co-ruler of the victim, Shari Faye, is the moon, and that is in the first house conjunct Pluto, which in Scorpio as well. I've seen this time and time again in these charts, in the event charts. Pluto is often conjunct the moon when a horrible murder occurs, but it has to be in relation to other things. That's not by itself. You cannot look at the moon and Pluto and go, oh no, there's going to be a murder. It doesn't sort of work like that. But in hindsight, looking at abduction charts where the situation turns into murder, we often see the moon and Pluto conjunct in the first house, because it's death staring her in the face, literally right from the beginning. And poor Shari Faye actually went through a few days of torture from this man as well. So, you know, he was an awful person, and making it worse by communicating up here with her family constantly. You know, it's atrocious. We've even got Mercury in Gemini as well at the time in the 8th house. The 8th house is death, and he is right there communicating that he's going to kill her to her family. So it's a super evil person. And